Good morning and a very warm welcome from the LSU Cox Communications Academic Center for Student Athletes. I cannot believe that we are in our 10th year of hosting a summit, not necessarily the Student Support Summit, but our spring conference is in its 10th year and this is going to be the best one yet. I'm honored to stand before you today as the chair of this conference, where we gather virtually under the theme of educational exploration, maneuvering the academic metaverse. In today's rapidly evolving educational landscape, where the digital realm continues to intersect with traditional learning environments, our collective journey through this academic metaverse is more pertinent than ever. As professionals dedicated to academic and student support, we understand the pivotal role we play, guiding students through this new realm and equipping them with the tools they need to thrive academically and beyond. Throughout this summit, you will hear from a diverse array of presenters who will engage you in discussions designed to ignite your creativity and foster collaboration. From exploring innovative learning technologies to addressing the unique challenges faced by student athletes, our goal is to empower you with actionable insights and strategies that you can implement within your educational support service centers. Moreover, this summit serves as a platform for meaningful exchange, where ideas can be shared, best practices can be celebrated, and connections are forged. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or a newcomer, I encourage you to actively engage with your fellow participants and seize the opportunity to learn from their expertise and as well contribute your own. Let us navigate the academic metaverse with a sense of purpose and passion, knowing that our efforts have the power to transform the lives of the students we serve. Thank you so much for being a part of this transformative journey. I really know that you all have a transformative and enriching experience today at the LSU Cox Communications Student Support Summit 2024. But before the exploration begins, I would like to address some logistical information. So you can find your session links on the presentation that was emailed to you. The Google Docs and OneDrive docs were emailed last night. Just a word of caution, the OneDrive links have changed. So please utilize, if you're utilizing OneDrive, please utilize the links that were emailed a couple minutes ago this morning. You can access the links by hovering over the session title on the session links page. You can hold Control key and activate the link. It'll take you directly to your session. If you would like to utilize captions for this session, please navigate to the bottom of your Zoom screen, hit Show Captions, and if you would like to utilize the full transcript, you can hit the little tick mark and select Full Transcript to be able to see the full transcript of all of today's sessions. Sessions will be recorded. We will have recordings available for you in the next couple of weeks, and all of our registrants will be notified when they are available. You will have a representative from our wonderful staff available in each one of your sessions if you have any questions, and we will allow you access to each of the sessions 5 minutes prior to the start time of each session. Please have your name visible so we are able to identify you in your Zoom link, and please remain muted unless you're asking a question of the presenter. While you may share the links with your colleagues, it is very important that you do not share this list broadly, as we would like to protect the integrity of the sessions. If you have any questions, we have a dedicated member of the Student Support Summit Committee monitoring CCACSA Summit at lsu.edu for the entire day. So please ask your questions and we will assist as soon as we can. I would now like to introduce our Executive Director, Walt Holliday, for some brief remarks.
Thanks, Dr. Kemp. Want to say good morning, everyone. What a wonderful, special day. First of all, because it's my birthday today. Yes. And then second of all, as Dr. Kemp mentioned, this also is the day of our Student Support Summit. And we're extremely excited to spend some time with you because our committee, I want to say special thanks to our committee. They've worked extremely hard to put together this amazing summit, which is really, as Dr. Kemp had mentioned, to kind of get you thinking about what things look like as we move forward in the landscape of college athletics. College education is moving at a rapid pace. And for us, one of the key pieces to our student success model is technology. And how do we leverage technology to not only close the educational gap in the classroom, but how do we leverage it to have success in the classroom? And in thinking about it, it's not just the educational component, it's even how we communicate with our students and our student athletes. We have to kind of really think forward, be forward thinking in everything that we do. So today, the summit is really structured to kind of get you to think about that and looking at moving forward, because we can't stand still. And it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful summit. So with that, the only thing standing between the summit and you guys is me. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Kemp and enjoy.
Well, thank you, everybody, and I won't allow myself to be the one interrupting the summit either. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our morning featured speaker, Dr. Ibrahim Baggili. Dr. Baggili is a first-generation Arab American, and he is a professor of computer science and cybersecurity at Louisiana State University. He's the founder of BitLab, Baggili Truth Lab, where he holds a joint appointment between the Division of Computer Science and Engineering and the Center of Computation and Technology. He has won numerous awards, and I'll name some now: the CT Civil Medal of Merit, the Medal of Thor from the Military Cyber Professional Association, Connecticut 40 Under 40, and he is a fellow of the European Alliance for Innovation. With his work with his students has uncovered vulnerabilities that impact over 1 billion people worldwide and has been featured in the news and TV outlets in over 20 languages and has been published extensively in the domain of digital forensics. I'll turn it over to Dr. Baggili.
Thank you. Can you hear me and see me? Hello? Yep. All right. I'm going to share my screen now, and I would just like some verification that everything is ready to go. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to present to you some things and some thoughts that I have about how AI and virtual reality can make a difference in education and some of the things that we should be thinking about moving forward. I'd like to maybe just touch on a little bit of what we do at the BitLab. At the BitLab, we do a lot of work that relates to both education and cybersecurity and digital forensics. Currently, we have work that's funded by DARPA that's having us look at how to deceive people while they're wearing their headsets and they're immersed in virtual environments. And that work is very interesting because while we look at things from a positive light, usually when it comes to technology, we should also be considering some of the negative cybersecurity aspects, as well as some psychological aspects as well that we're typically not thinking about. This was a really cool project that we did last year with UHI. It's a K-12 initiative that we did with my class. And what we really wanted to do is go to high schools and teach students about cybersecurity. I believe what's most interesting about this specific project was that we decided to try to teach cybersecurity in a very tangible way, as opposed to using computers or using the metaverse, so to speak. We thought that this would really bring things to life. And what you can see here. How do you like hashing? And we're trying to teach them about hashing algorithms, but one of our students came up with the idea of using the blender as the algorithm and putting in different ingredients that students would blend, and then they would start guessing each other's smoothies. that's basically a complex password. If you use more ingredients, then it would be a more complex password. If you use less ingredients, it'd be a less complex password. And guess which one they were be able to guess? The one that was less complex. But I'd like to start this summit by having two of my friends say something to you. And this is sort of a mild joke here, but let's roll with it and see what happens.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Student Support Summit. I'm excited to say hello to you all here at Louisiana State University.
Can anybody guess whose voice that is? I'd like to see some messages pop up or something regarding who you thought that voice was. Let's see here what comes up. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, what about this next one?
Welcome to the Epic Student Support Summit. I'm super stoked to be saying hello to all you awesome people right here at Louisiana State University.
Can anybody guess who that is? Yep, that's also true. AI Jack Black, that is true. So the point of this is, as we move forward into how AI is working in generative AI, we can generate people's voices. And think about an environment where your teacher could be using somebody else's voice that maybe the students would resonate with. And that's the kind of world that we're going to continue to move on into. And, some people have monotone voices and some people have exciting ways to present things. And can we actually change that and fluctuate that as students are trying to learn? And I'm sure most of you have had professors, you're like, I can't wait to leave this class because I'm about to go to sleep, especially in fields like ours where when we're talking about computer science and engineering. So that's one area that I think AI could really help with. But I think it's important to look at the trends when it comes to how important these things are. I think people are not looking at the market and understanding how big the market could potentially or is and how big it's going to be moving forward. I don't have to read the numbers off of the slides, but you can very quickly see that when it comes to virtual reality and mixed reality, and when it comes to AI, and AI has, is holding higher value right now in the market, that it's going to happen. I mean, we can sit down here and we could say, hey, like this thing is not coming our way. We could start discussing ways of, how to not do this. But I think ultimately we have to, and there are multiple reasons we have to. And I'd like to provide some of those examples as I move forward with my presentation today. So the first thing I want to do is maybe talk a little bit about what mixed reality is. And I think I want to maybe introduce it very quickly so that we can think of it and understand it in a more sort of foundational level. So virtual reality, when I think of virtual reality, I think of a headset that covers your eyes and you can't see anything. And Milgram and Kishino in 1994 created this thing that's called the reality-virtuality continuum. There's actual reality of things that you look at, right? So right now you're looking at your screen in front of you, and that's reality. There's augmented realities when you impose something on top of a real world and you're looking at it. Like think of the game Pokemon Go would be an example of that. And then there's augmented virtuality, right? Where you're putting a physical object, and that's the, it's basically the opposite of augmented reality, where in augmented reality, the real world is the main thing you're looking at. And in augmented virtuality, the virtual world is the main thing you're looking at, then you're putting a physical object in there. And then there's virtual reality where everything is virtual, so to speak. So if you think of this thing as a continuum, then we can think of this mostly as mixed reality as it trickles down. And this has become a lot more popular right now with Apple's release of their system. And what's interesting to note about Apple's new system, if you haven't really looked deeply into it, is it uses this thing called video pass-through. So you're not really looking at the world through glasses in an analog way. There's actually cameras that are built into it, and those cameras are projecting what you're seeing. Now, that means that every signal you look at is digital. It's not actually an analog signal like you would when you're wearing the normal normal glasses. So with that said, what is the potential for mixed reality in the use of education? There's a lot of different things that you could use it for. For example, to engage students, to talk about more complex subjects, to virtualize chemistry in physics labs, right? It's a lot. As academic institutions, we all know that there are financial burdens on us. Now, can we spin up a virtual lab, and is it going to cost us a lot less to do that than it would be a real lab? And once you spin it up once, you can spin it up 100 different times, right? So there are some advantages for us to do that. What about anatomy and space exploration? If you want to send students to space in a classroom, I mean, we can't really afford that, maybe unless you're Elon Musk, right? But we can't afford it, right? So how are we going to do that? Well, maybe virtual reality is the way to go. And there are actually a lot of great simulations of that, and I've played with them myself, and it really feels like you're out there in outer space and you're learning about, you know, the moon landing and so on and so forth. What about abstract math, marine biology, right? Some institutions might want to have a marine biology program, but they're not close to the water. Well, maybe this is a way that we could establish that. Immersive music for music education, emergency response training, geography, and the list goes on, right? So the idea of being able to virtualize physical environments is really great for academia. You know, it's a lot cheaper to build a virtual campus than it is to build a physical campus. Now, from a money perspective, it's a win situation. The question is, can students really learn the same amount, right? And I think it really depends on the application we're looking at. And this is a study that we conducted ourselves. This is a paper that we published in 2020. I published it with my students, called Exploring the Learning Efficacy of Digital Forensics Concepts and Bagging and Tagging of Digital Devices. The idea here is we wanted to be able to teach students how to go to a crime scene. Again, my area is digital forensics, and how to document the crime scene and how to pull digital devices out of that environment and do it in a legal and sound manner. And what we did is we created a virtual reality game, which I'm gonna, play a video of right here in a second, to give you an example of what's happening. And we use what's called simulated situated learning, right? And that's also another great advantage of using this technology, is we can actually simulate a real life sort of experience that students can immerse themselves into. So I'm just gonna play a quick video for you to be able to see what this thing looks like. All right, so this is the intro, and then what happens is you jump into the lecture.
The audience understands that the lecture will not make you a certified digital forensics examiner by any means. This lecture is really just designed to provide a simple introductory.
Now, as you can see, this guy looks the exact opposite of me, right? But the avatar is not the same, and I had them actually change it in the final version. However, that's my voice, and this is a lecture that I gave, and these hand movements and everything were mimicked, during the development of the project.
Level outline of.
And once you leave the lab, then you enter the real experience.
And now it's time to practice what you have learned. Thank you and good luck.
So now you enter the simulated situated learning environment.
Ah, you're here. I'm Mr. Startup, the CEO of this company, and I'm glad you've joined our security team, because I'm in a bit of a pickle. I've received an anonymous tip that one of our engineers is going to leak the blueprints for our new VR time machine goggles. It's our flagship product. If we lose those goggles, it will mean the end of Think Small Technologies.
All right, so now you're being presented with a problem that you have to solve, and you're being placed into that simulated situated learning environment. By the way, this guy is really Irish. We worked with him while they're in Ireland, so it's not a fake accent. I just wanted to bring that up.
I better stop. We can't let those blue.
And now you're on the crime scene, and you're gathering the evidence, and you're learning the process of what it takes to really gather the evidence in a digital forensic, or in a forensically sound manner, so to speak. And as you can see here, it's going to guide you through what's the right process of doing that. Okay, so I've kind of showed you what we've done, and then we tested it with 57 students as we ran them through the entire experiments. We took some students and we put them in the real world environment, and we put some students in the virtual environment. And what you see here is what we did was we gave them a test before and we gave them a test after to see if they learned more in the virtual environment or the physical environment. And what you can see is that the mean scores were very comparable, right? So in virtual reality, in the virtual reality environment, students scored about 9.81 after they completed it. And then in the physical world, they scored about 10.15. These differences are not really statistically significant from our perspective. So in this specific task where you're interacting with a scene in a virtual environment, then it seems like virtual reality can actually be very useful in this educational landscape. Okay, now I'd like to demystify AI just a little bit, right? So we use this, we use the AI term loosely, and people fight over what AI means, and that's not really what I'm here to do. What I'm here to kind of talk about is there's many different facets of AI. And this is kind of a diagram that lays out, a tree of the different types of AIs, including machine learning, knowledge-based systems, and so on and so forth. But I want to focus on a couple of things, right? Machine learning is one of the most highly used ones, and this is where you're learning from data. Think of when you're, watching Netflix and it's trying to figure out what you like. It typically uses machine learning. Deep learning mimics the human brain, and when you're opening up your phone app and you're trying to recognize somebody's face, it's using deep learning, for example. And then there's generative AI, things like ChatGPT, generative images, music, etc. And I'm going to share with you something interesting towards the end when it comes to music. And then you have natural language processing, which is kind of used in many of these actually. And this is about trying to analyze text and looking at context and looking at grammar. And this becomes really useful, of course, when we're talking about essays. And then there's this concept of reinforcement learning, which is you learn by doing something, and you get like points for doing it right, and you get negative points, for example, for not doing it correctly. You can think of an AI that's trying to play a chess game, and it keeps learning whenever it fails, right? And that would be reinforcement learning. So this is kind of the high-level perspective of what the different high-level AI concepts that are mostly used. So where can this be really useful, right, when it comes to student success? And, I was really inspired by Han, who created, Han Migo. And the idea of tutoring at scale is very, very interesting to us in academia and in student success, right? Why is that the case? If you look back to the research in 1984 that was proposed by Bloom, we all talk about Bloom's taxonomy and so on and so forth, but you look at this graph, right? This is a graph that was generated many, 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 many years ago. I guess 3 years after I was born, if we want to be more specific. And what you see here are, different representations of where students learn the most, right? If you look at the purple line, when that's the lecture model, when you have, for example, a ratio of 1 professor to 30 students, it follows some sort of a normal distribution, right? And then when you have a mastery model where you have 1 to 30 still, and in the mastery model, the idea here is they're learning more through projects and hands-on learning and things like that, you can see that their learning shifts at least about 1 standard deviation, right? And that means that they're learning a lot more using these, the same sort of ratio, but now it's kind of a different learning environment. Now, if you do like the mastery, well, mastery, when we talk about mastery, mastery is more along the lines of like students don't really move on to the next stage of what they're learning until they fully understand that first stage, right? So let's master this because we needed to master this, for example, skill in order to move on to the next skill and so on and so forth. It's something that we've been talking about for many years. So I apologize for mixing that up in my head. And then when you go to the next one and you look at the green one there, which is a 1-to-1 mastery plus tutoring, you can see a huge jump, right? When you get one-on-one tutoring, you can see a huge jump in how much students learn, right? So the question is, when you have thousands of students, right, how can you do tutoring at scale? And the answer to that could be AI, right? And there are many instances where that's actually really awesome. And I've played with some of these things, and they're quite useful, right? So here's two examples from Conmigos. Like, I still don't understand. I'm about to give up when it comes to math. And then the AI is really helping the student understand these things. There are some really positive reasons why, an AI could be useful, because the AI is not going to be frustrated with a student if they ask them a million questions, whereas a tutor might be frustrated with a student if they're asked a million questions, right? So that's one thing, for example, that we might not be thinking about as we're moving forward. There's also controls put in place specifically in Conmigo. So like, if the students are asking inappropriate questions, or if they're trying to do something that maybe is off, is not related to what they're trying to learn, then we're kind of capturing that information and we're sharing it with their educators as well. So I think it's very important to recognize the power of AI when it comes to tutoring, and specifically also when it comes to coding. And I'll talk about coding a little bit in a latter slide. What about essay writing, right? All students have to write essays on a continuous basis, but they also have to write essays when they apply to college. Some students are less, privileged, and they come from school systems that are not providing them, for example, with as much support as they need to write their essays. For most of you that have reviewed many of these essays, you're like, I'm pretty sure you didn't write this. Maybe your dad or your mom wrote this. That's happened many times, right? So one of the things that we have to figure out, and I think the Khan Academy has done sort of a good job with this, is how do we provide tools and techniques that enable us to level the playing when it comes to writing? And that's the sort of thing that AI can be very helpful with, right? We're not talking about the example of where we're asking ChatGPT to write a whole essay for us, right? We're talking about the example of, I'm trying to write something and I need feedback and support to know if what I'm writing is structured well, if my grammar is correct, if I'm providing enough evidence, and there's structure and there's a style. So this is really important, because I think this could really help us on multiple levels. On one level, it could help level the playing for the students, but it could also make our jobs as teachers and managers quite, more. We can do this faster, and sometimes we have to do things faster, and I'll talk about this in a second why. We're supporting a lot of students, and we're supporting managers have a lot of people that they supervise, and so on and so forth. So we need to start thinking about that and seeing how we could actually take advantage of this technology. And this is the slide I was talking about, right? When we think of teachers, specifically in K to 12, on the bottom right-hand side is kind of a funny graph that I found. It's not real data, the one that says classroom teaching. And if you read it closely, it'll be like, this is how much time, if you look at the red one, this is how much time I spend on testing, data analysis, meetings about meetings, right? That's what teachers feel that they're doing. I think the funny one is also when you look at the yellow part of the pie chart, dealing with high-profile students and their parents who are sometimes even higher profile, right? So that's how students feel about their jobs in K to 12. Realistically, when it comes to research, the one on the left-hand side is research-based. So they spent 32% of the time on instruction, 19.48% on supervision. Planning and preparation is about 13.57%. And I would assume that a lot of these sort of things that we're looking at, even when it comes to like K to 12 teachers, is highly correlated to when we're talking about, student support and student success. Because a lot of the students that might need support are actually transitioning away from high school, and they still need that sort of same level of support that we would consider in K to 12 environments. So the question is, how can we, maybe decrease certain time that maybe, teachers are spending on certain topics or certain parts of their job, and how can we speed that up, right? And this is kind of a fundamental question. I was talking to a friend of mine once, and I was asking, he was telling me, it's like, my professor told me that the reason you study computer science is because you're lazy. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, our whole purpose is to automate things so we can just be lazy. And I was like, I guess that's a good way to look at it. So automation is really part of the equation here. There is a really cool tool that you see up here, and it's called, I think, Magic School, that has multiple different tools that you could use when it comes to AI in education. But how can it help? Well, it can help you in lesson planning, right? Even if you go to ChatGPT and you tell it to write you some lesson plan, it'll come up with something. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's pretty good. And we can use it for that sort of thing. Voice assistants in the classroom are actually useful. You know, there's a technology now where teachers have access to this device that they can talk to, and then that device is going to help them, bring up a video or show specific concepts that the students need to learn, or store a file that they need to store in, for example, their Google Drive or so on and so forth. And integrating that voice technology into the entire ecosystem of educational technology is actually quite useful to be at the hands of the teacher while they're actually in the classroom. Educational games, adaptive learning. So the idea of when you are learning something and the game is adapting to your needs is really important. That's where AI could be leveraged as well. And of course, everyone's favorite, assessment, rubrics, quizzes. There are techniques now where you could just have the AI. For example, if you want to have a video that the students are going to watch, you can put this video in this AI technology. It's going to go through the entire video on its own, and it's going to create questions for you, right? And then you can leverage those questions and give them to the students for assessment to make sure that they actually watched and learned what they were supposed to learn. Professional emailing, teacher observations, student observations, and so on and so forth. Creating songs, which we'll get to. This is my new favorite thing, and my family is getting really bored of it because I create a song at least on a daily basis. Student data analysis and generating flashcards for learning, right? And feedback. So all of these items can really decrease the amount of time that you might be spending on certain things as part of your job, so that then maybe you could free your time so you could spend more time with the students, right? And that's kind of the hope, right? That's what we hope we could achieve with all these things. And coding, right, is one of those topics. Whenever we're looking at computing, and Louisiana is part of that, they have this challenge as well, is we don't have enough computer science teachers in the K-12 system, right? So can we leverage these technologies for AI tutoring and using AI tutoring for computer science? And can we help upskill students so that by the time they get to college, they have these skills that are needed to enter these various programs? And, I think coding is important for almost everybody right now, because almost everyone's going to have to do just a little bit of coding as we move on in our life. Now, also AI is helping us achieve that goal much faster, and that's really great. So ChatGPT, for example, is quite good at writing very simple code. When it comes to very complex code, sometimes it can't handle it. But that's one area that we could use these technologies to help in coding as well. What about AI for college and career advising? And I'm not sure if any of you have heard of Career Deco, but the idea of having an AI help you understand where you need to go with your career, what are your options, where are the jobs, what do you need to do to get from point A to point B is actually really useful. And there's also some companies have come up with AI technologies that can help you interview better, right? So it would capture you on video and analyze how you're doing during an interview and provide you with feedback on where you need to succeed. And that could be very helpful in you scoring your first job or your second job or your third job too. So these are the ways that AI could also be helpful in advising our students. Now, I presented you with a bunch of things that I think are great, right? This is what we always do, is like, this thing is great, right? But that's not really where my mind goes all the time, because while things are great, there's a lot of difficulties with us whenever we look at these various technologies, right? So the first one is cost, right? That's the first thing that hits us, is how much does this cost, and how much does it cost to upkeep, and so on and so forth. Technological infrastructure can be expensive. The other problem is policy. Like, do we have enough policy around this? And I know in Louisiana, they're trying to push hard on this. And I know Kevin George is leading the lab school at LSU, is working towards that. with a team at the Department of Education, right? Digital literacy. Do we have enough digital literacy to catch up with all of these things? What about equity, right? So if we're saying AI is great, let's give it to students to use and for teachers to use. Are we giving it to all students and are we giving it to all teachers? Because the idea is it could help level things, but if we're only giving it to a certain population, are we really fixing the cause, so to speak? And accessibility is another one. And there are some challenges that go beyond that, right? The null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is all about, it's like, oh, this thing's going to be great. That's what we said, about, social media. It's like, this thing's great. And now we're like, wait, is it really great? Are we spending a lot of time on social media? So we always have this idea that this thing's going to make our lives easier, but it ends up just replacing one part of our life and then making our life harder potentially in other ways, right? So we really have to study that and understand it in a more sort of comprehensive manner for us to be like, is it really going to have a return on investment? The other one is hallucinations, right? AI hallucinates. If you played enough with ChatGPT and told it to give you references, it'll invent references, right? And that's not good. And AI has hallucinations, and we have to kind of think about that. Are we deteriorating our critical thinking by having over dependencies on these things? Is another one, right? I know, for example, my critical thinking towards navigating in my car has been completely deteriorated, because if I don't get into my car and I push Google Maps and I go and I was like, this is where I need to go, I don't know where to go anymore. That's horrible. But that's where I've gotten in my life, because I'm like, oh, the system's going to figure that out for me. And sometimes I'm worried I'm just going to drive off a cliff, and hopefully I won't. There's too much stuff going on, right? It's overwhelming. Now I have to add AI to my list of things, and there's too much distraction. Think of TikTok and think of YouTube and so on and so forth. AI, some systems, if they're not trained properly, are biased, right? They can make decisions that are completely biased because of the data that they were trained on. And when we're talking about hyper-personalization, students are going to learn from a bubble, right? We're like, hey, we're going to personalize, your curriculum for you. Is that a good thing? Because maybe then you're not learning the things that you should be in from a general perspective, and that's something we have to think about. And lastly, and I would argue that this is probably my wife's, my partner, and favorite one is dehumanization. It's like this is like not human, and I think there's some truth to that. If we're talking about education, students are dealing with people, and how are we going to ensure that they have that we keep that people touch, and how do we do that in a way that provides students with the best experience that they can have? And with that said, this is from the U.S. Department of Education report. I think this kind of sums up everything that we kind of touched base on, right? So at the center, there's students and teachers. When you look at the different bubbles that are part of this equation, we have to make sure that AI is aligned to our vision of learning, that it's explainable, that we understand what it's doing, that it minimizes bias, that it's context aware, that it's transparent and accountable. And of course, we take into account privacy, because privacy is very important. If we're interacting with these systems and giving it private information, we need to be aware, specifically when it comes to kids, because there are much harsher regulation around that. There's much stronger regulation around that. But we have to have humans in the loop, right? And we also have to create AI with an educational perspective. Using like a generalized AI system without taking into account all of the educational needs, I'm not sure is the way to move forward. So with that said, I talked about how my favorite thing to do is to create songs using AI. And you can literally have a system, it's called Suno, and I could share my screen and maybe do that with you in a little bit. But I decided to create 2 songs. It's the same song, 2 different versions about the Student Support Summit. And I just wanted to share them with you to see how advanced AI is becoming in terms of creating music. So I'm gonna start the first one now.
In classrooms of the future where the digital skies AI tutors guide us.
Oops. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. Let me try again. My apologies.
Welcome.
Well,
We were doing so well. Let's start this again. All right.
In classrooms of the future where the digital skies AI tutors guide us as curiosity flies. Lessons come to life in mixed reality skies. Education's new frontier right before our eyes. Dive into realms where learning frosts with AI and mixed reality. Our spirit revives. Tuning and scaling virtual dives. Together we grow and every student strives. In this blend of tech, where innovation derives, we're building the path where the future arrives. With each immersive lesson, a new dream survives. In the heart of learning, every student thrives.
All right, so that was the first version. Here's the second version for you.
In classrooms of the future, where the digital skies, AI tutors guide us as curiosity flies. Lessons come to life in mixed reality skies. Education's new frontier right before our eyes. Dive into realms where learning thrives. With a mixed reality, our spirit revives. Tutoring at scale and virtual dives. Together we grow and every student strives. In this blend of tech where innovation derives, we're building the path where the future arrives. With immersive lesson and dream survives. In the heart of learning, every student thrives.
All right, with that, here are the references, and thank you very much. Go Tigers. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But as you can see, you might want to go and create some songs today, and hopefully you'll enjoy the rest of the summit. And thank you very much for having me.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the chat and we can facilitate those for you.
You're welcome.
It's an awesome Friday when you're able to start your day with some bluegrass about Student Support Summit.
I thought people would get a kick out of that. And, you know, all it took me is literally 20 seconds to make that song, which is quite amazing. Suno AI, SUNO. I see somebody's asking a question when Suno.ai. I'll put it in the chat.
Great. That's a great question.
What is so? I just read the question, unrelated, but what are your thoughts on the Willy Wonka AI experience in Glasgow, Scotland? I first of all, I don't know about that experience, but I can tell you that um, I'm not the best reader in the world, and I've been made fun of my entire life for that. I've written books, but I've never really read a lot of books, and I have read Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and it's one of my favorite books. I don't know about the AI experience, and I don't know much about it. I'm sorry. I'd probably want to experience it myself. I will say that much.
You do not. It was an event where they had a lot of AI promotions and zero in-person execution. It was terrible. I'll send it to you after so you can see the videos.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about it, so I'd like to experience it. I'm not saying I'm gonna enjoy it. Um, and if you guys want, I'll send you those songs. It could become a theme on yearly
Oh yeah,
basis.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share my slide deck with people. Sure. If you want, I'll share it with the team here, and they can share it with everybody.
That'll be great. Thank you.
That's a really good point, Shay. Yeah, a lot of the training that's happening on a lot of this data is it might be, people might own the rights to it, and I'm not sure where we need to go with that. In terms of Suno, I tried to find out what they trained on, and I couldn't really figure that part out. I still love using their tool because when I was in college, I had my own studio, and I spent hours and hours trying to record things, and now I can just click a button and create a song, which I think is fun for every occasion. But yes, you are correct. I don't know much about if there's any information currently. I'm sure there's some stuff that you'll find out there on how to use AI properly. There is a report that I shared in my slides from the Department of Education regarding the steps that we should be moving forward towards creating policy. And I know in Louisiana they're trying to right now there's a team that's trying to create policy around some of these issues. So plagiarism is definitely one of them. And I know that many journals and academic sort of, high quality publishing venues have adopted some policies around that. For example, I tell my students they can use ChatGPT anytime they want if they write something and they want to help improve it and check for grammar and things like that. Then it's a great tool for that. Just don't ask it to create all the content for you, right? There's different ways you can spot people using ChatGPT. In my opinion, if you see the word "I'm thrilled," then you know that ChatGPT created it, because everybody that posts on LinkedIn and everybody's like, "I'm thrilled." It's like, oh yeah, you definitely use ChatGPT. And then it loves using the word underscore. This underscores whatever, right? And if you see the word underscore, you should be like, yep, that was created using ChatGPT. So there, it kind of likes repeating some of these terms, I find, and if you play enough with it, you'll find some of these really small things that can tip you off sometimes.
All right. So thank you so much for your presentation. That was fantastic.
All right, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.